For over 2 weeks, British artists, that would be a British artist, Polly Alakija, spent her hours at the foreshore harbours, Ikoyi, Lagos, southwest of Nigeria, painting a ferry. The artist, through her imagery, tells the story of a popular Yoruba folklore. This is not the first time Polly will be involved in this sort of art, as she has also painted a molue, a tricycle also known as keke napep, and a lorry. Proceeds from the exhibition go to charity. Art Review tonight looks at the efforts of a woman on a colourful mission.
It's time to take the ferry for a ride. The colourful display lights up the water. Passers-by stop to join in capturing shots. It's not every day something unique sails through your waterway. It's as though the story behind its imagery has been endorsed by those included in the tale, as the rain falls approvingly, guiding the ferry to port. Art enthusiasts have turned up to have a view of the ferry and other works by Polly, who gathers the guests for an opening speech.
Why a ferry? Why am I painting a ferry? I have to say I asked myself that question several times over the last few weeks, especially when it was either blisteringly hot, so hot indeed that when I was painting the top of the ferry I could feel the heat coming through the soles of my shoes, and when I opened the pots of paint actually kind of exploded a bit because the paint had expanded. One of the other challenges was that, of course, the top of the ferry is a little bit rounded, so an awful lot of things rolled off the ferry and into the water, and that was on a good day when it wasn't raining. Anyway, so I did ask myself that question quite often, but managed to get it done. So I'm on track, we've got our images, so as you may all know, that I then use those images to create a limited edition print, just as I did with the molue that I did in January, that is here. So I don't just paint the ferry remains in its painted state, used as a passenger ferry. I then create this print, and we are working, Foreshore Harbours is working with CDC. So we're trying to create a bit more awareness of the work of CDC and helping to create some funds as well that will feed back into the charity. So, you know, today is the easy day. We're going to go lightly on you today. When the print is finished, we're going to call you all back in again, and that's when we're going to be selling those prints.
For those who have had their fill, it's nothing but accolades for the artist's talent.
Polly is on a journey to take art to the public. One of the things she's passionate about is how to bring art into the public space. Bringing art into the public space transforms the way the public responds to art. One of the things that we have in, shall we say, in this town, in this city, is we don't have enough art in the public space. Taking the ferry and letting it go every day lets people look at it. Art has a way of transforming you. It has a way of transforming how you think about yourself. It has a way of transforming what you think even about the environment you find yourself.
It's a wonderful afternoon to get down here. I've never been down to this venue before, but it's down on the foreshore, and to see Polly's work, and she's just built or created something that is tremendous. She's chosen a canvas that is a boat, and when you see it and you see all around it, and particularly when you see the roof, you can see the, frankly, I think, genius in it, the thought as well as the execution. It's almost like a Sistine Chapel, I've told her.
Well, I kind of expected, because I'd seen it sort of grow over the weeks as Polly had been working on it, and I know her work with the Molloways and the Kekes and everything, but seeing it out on the water was just fantastic, you know. Really unique, very special, and a very innovative way of taking your art to a different audience. So I think it was a great event, very successful.
And for all her effort, Polly does deserve to be rewarded.
In sports stories now, adequate preparations and a work sports policy is the only way Nigeria can impress at major international tournaments. This is the view of the chairman of the Lagos State Basketball Association, Mr. Babs Ogunade, and the former president, Athletics Federation of Nigeria, Mr. Dan Ngerem. Both sports administrators want the country to give more attention to the welfare of athletes.
Qualifying had nothing at all to do with our preparedness, with our skills. We had 12 boys, 11 of which hadn't been to Nigeria before. But see, these were hungry boys who rose on the plank, on the coattails of Nigeria to play and qualify Nigeria for the Olympics. Now, going away from that, we need to first put our house in order, put together proper structures where we will find players, where we will groom players.
Nigeria at times is like a general going to war without a map, without a plan. Yeah. All Nigeria do is every 4-year cycle, we have Olympic Games, we have All Africa Games, we have Commonwealth Games. We spend billions in these competitions. But if you ask me where the policy framework is in Nigeria today about school sports, there's none. If you ask me the synthesis between primary, secondary, university level, there's none. And all over the world, people are looking for Nigerian talent. Look at our physique, for example, and basketball. Take, for example, last London Olympics, we didn't win anything. Next year is 2016, there's nothing on ground, there's no budget, there's no support for athletes, there's no policy framework. So what are we following? Is an atmosphere of confusion and planlessness. But what I'm appealing is that these billions we're going to spend in Brazil, because of necessity, Nigeria must participate, Commonwealth, Olympics, All Africa Games. Let's use 10% of that and connect Ministry of Education and Ministry of Sports and go back to where we were.
In the domestic league, Wiki Tourists of Bauchi are now the new leaders on the Nigerian Premier League, standing following their lone goal victory away in Anambra State over their host FC Ifeanyi Uba. All the massive 3 points takes their points tally to 27 as they overtake previous leaders Sunshine Stars, who stay on 26 points after losing out to Enugu Rangers by a lone goal in Enugu. Elsewhere, strugglers Dolphins of Port Harcourt forced defending champions Kano Pillars to a 2-2 draw at the Sani Abacha Stadium. In Kaduna, Giwa FC recorded their first win in their new adopted home ground at the Ahmadu Bello Stadium as they beat El Kanemi Warriors 3-1. Meanwhile, at the nest of champions in Uyo, Akwa United could only manage a 1-1 draw against Warri Wolves. Sharks FC and Heartland played a 1-1 draw as well. In tennis, defending Wimbledon champion Petra Vitova says that she is hoping her form holds up despite a disrupted build-up to this year's tournament. The Chairs, who also won in 2011, pulled out of the Eastbourne last week through illness and missed tournaments in the Qatar and UAE earlier in the year. Vitova begins her title defense against Kiki Bertens of Netherlands on centre court on Tuesday.
Well,
I don't think that they were.
Meanwhile, Wimbledon champion Novak Djokovic admits there is nothing wrong with the way he communicates with his coach Boris Becker during matches. With so many cameras following the matches of the top player and coaches, Djokovic says that it will be picked up immediately if a coach was offering specific tactical instructions rather than just psychological support during games. but he also said that there were times when the player leaned heavily on his support team.
To play finals 2 years ago and to win the title last year, even though
Well, crowds have marched in the Tunisian resort town of Sousse, where a gunman reportedly killed 38 people on Friday, many of whom were tourists. Going through the town, they expressed sympathy with relatives of the victims. All 15 of them were said to be British, 1 German and 1 Belgian have been identified amongst the dead. Many of the tourists in hotels in the area have fled the country or are waiting for specific arrangements and their flights. While the attack, the latest since the one in March, could put a dampener on the country's economy, which relies heavily on tourism. But the government has assured a security clampdown since Friday's attack. Greece's Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras has announced the country's bank will remain closed while capital controls will be imposed. The country risks a default and is moving closer to exiting the Eurozone. There are no details how long the banks will remain shut.
Mrs. Tsipras has not exactly said what control caps will be imposed, but imposing them would mean the government would put limits on the amount of money individuals and businesses can withdraw or transfer. This would also affect withdrawal of money from ATMs, which will be limited, even having a daily limit of 60 euros. While overseas transfer of cash will likely to be restricted, as well as cheque and credit card transactions. Earlier today, the Parliament backed the call by the Prime Minister for a referendum on the country's bailout deal with international creditors. The country needs to make a $1.8 billion payment to the International Monetary Fund by Tuesday, or risk defaulting on its obligations. Analysts say this would result in disaster for the country's banking system, which is currently relying on emergency cash injection from the European Central Bank, which this evening said it would not be increasing its emergency fund for Greece. Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras says he's confident the Greek people would vote no to the ultimatum by the IMF at the referendum on July 5th. He's also confident that in the aftermath of the proud no, the negotiating power of the country with its international creditors will be strengthened.
More than 500 people were injured when fire ripped through crowds at a party at an amusement park outside Taiwan's capital, Taipei. The incident at the Formosa water park is believed to have happened when a colored powder ignited after being discharged onto the crowd. Footage showed people panicking and screaming. Inflatable water toys were shown being used as stretchers. And the main news again. NEMA has said that crowd control remains a problem in rescue operations after 5 people died in bombings in Borno State. The People's Democratic Party, the PDP, has accused President Muhammadu Buhari of inefficiency in his first month in office. The presidency says that it is cleaning the mess left behind by the administration of former President Goodluck Jonathan. And marchers in the Tunisian town of Sousse have condemned the killing of 38 people, mostly tourists, by militants on a nearby beach. And that's how it's been on the news at 10 tonight. I want to thank you so much indeed for being a part of it. I am Gimba Omar. Good night.